Sharon, I'd like to welcome you to my office, and today what I'd like to do is I'd like to get to know you better. I'd like to be able to take a look at some of the values and the principles that you brought with you into your administration as a mayor. I'd like to also very briefly look at the last election, and then take a look at the future as well too, in terms of perhaps your legacy, your greatest achievement, and so on. And over the years, you've been a woman who has been really active in community life. And I remember reading in your UBC alumni profile how even as a young woman, you were a floor representative and a residence fellow as well too.
At university,
yeah.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Well, even probably it goes back even further into high school, where we used to have different areas like ABCD clubs in our school,
yes.
and I was certainly part of one of those as a leader. Joined the biology club, that sort of thing. So, you know, I was quite athletic and did a lot in sporting, from grass hockey to basketball. If you can believe, I smile when I see the 6'6" people nowadays, and I was 5'2", but I was a basketball guard, and so yes, it goes way back, and then into university. Didn't have too much time to, you know, so involved. My studies in pharmacy were very intense, and I also took on the responsibility of a floor rep in the residence where I lived. So being away from home, you know, gave you your independence, but it was new, living out on campus, and had a boyfriend, which was my husband today. So trying to manage all that time was busy.
And I can't imagine you standing still and not being involved. So I wonder, what have you been doing since the last election?
Well, I mean, it's only a number of months, and I have had, what I tell some people, I've got 20 years of my life that I committed to politics now to catch up on. There's always things, you know, I'm a to-do list person, and there were many things that I thought one day I'll get to. I haven't got to them yet. I've got file folders that I have to go through, because when I first started in politics, it was long before the internet, and you know, I'm always an information gatherer, so I have files on anything and everything, and which really nowadays and in my future I don't think I'm going to need. So I have to make room for other ideas, other sort of ambitions. So
clear out some old stuff and get some new stuff.
Clear out some old stuff. I've also taken a PowerPoint course because I've been asked to speak at a number of functions. The youth involvement that I promoted as mayor has caught up the attention of a lot of people. So I've done one session already. So I thought, well, I have to learn this new technology. So I took that. And then most recently, I signed up for a memoir course, which was interesting, and it sort of brings me back. I haven't even thought about political writings. It's more about personal writings. So that, and then I've been involved a little bit with Souls for Souls. It's a initiative to collect shoes for people that are in need locally, but also more so for places like Haiti or Japan. And Jim Benshaw is the one-man show, I call it, behind the program, had asked me to help, and when I said, okay, you know, give me your list, it's all up here to him. So I'm sort of, I'm trying to get the students involved in the schools, so I'm delivering boxes and things to the schools.
What was it like being a mayor?
You know, it was busy. I loved it, and I really do miss it. There's no question about it. I look at it as it was an opportunity. I was 9 years as city councillor, and I got to a point where I had to decide whether I was going to run again for city council, whether I was going to retire, or maybe run for mayor. And it was actually my daughter who said to me, you know, Mom, if you retire, then, you know, that's it. So, you know, really, you only have one choice. You might as well run for mayor, because if you don't make it, then you can retire. So, and I always go into things to try and make a change, make a difference, and then when I know it's time to get on, and usually with my own sort of desire and ambitions, I don't like to stay in something too long. So 9 years as a councillor, I had contributed, I thought, what I could. So then when I ran for mayor and then was elected, that was 6 years that I just loved. And
what did you love the most about being a mayor?
you know, I loved the people, the opportunity. Like, I had opportunity that I would never have had if I had not been in that position. I mean, I sat next to Jean Chrétien at a dinner. I've met the Prime Minister, like, talked face to face. I knew the Premier, you know, personally. You know, I could pick up the phone if I needed to.
Those must have been really rewarding experiences.
They were, you know, even like senators, you know, certainly Senator Fitzpatrick was, you know, he's become a good friend, but I had a good relationship with him. Individuals, sort of people that I would never have had an opportunity to have my path cross with them. So I looked at that as a privilege. Going places, representing this city was my, I think, the best part.
Your
because
passion, yeah?
I was so excited about what our community, you know, had. My daughter was born here. My son was 6 weeks when we moved here. We've had a business here for, well, it'll be 35 years. So this community has grown up, and I loved being part of that and promoting it.
What did you like the least about being a mayor?
The least was probably the conflicts that happened. They weren't large. There were a number of times when, particularly individual conflicts that happened between neighbors, because those were often things that in the position I was in that I couldn't do anything about, but often they got to a point where they wanted to talk to someone in authority that they thought would be able to help. So those were probably the most frustrating.
Where you had to help to negotiate?
Tried to, and in some cases had no authority to really, except maybe just give some advice. And there was a few, I guess the worst part, I had a couple of incidences where I was a little afraid because of some interactions with, just I could probably count on one hand a number of people that were so angry or took it upon themselves that they thought that decisions that had been made were not to their liking. And most people, you know, I can tolerate if someone's upset and angry, but there's some people that, again, very few, but a few situations that I was very nervous and worried about safety, which in most cases was not the norm.
You know, through all levels of government, politicians experience difficult time because being a politician in general is a very challenging experience, whether you're a mayor, a premier, or a prime minister. And leaders go through difficult periods, dark times. And I'm wondering, what would you say was the darkest time for you in your administration, and how did you deal with it?
You know, when I ran, the word politician, you know, as most people know, when you take a look at who's the most loved in a profession, who's the least loved, politicians are always at the bottom of the list. It's interesting because my actual profession as a pharmacist is at the top of the list. So taking on this profession of being a politician, I wanted to change that. I wanted to change the thinking of politicians being someone that people didn't like. I couldn't understand that because I was a person that believed in process. I believed in good decision making. So that part was sort of an interesting thing. That for darkness, you know, I can't really, I think some decision making over some time it took to do some decision making was maybe what might be a dark part, but in reality, every day was different, you know, and that's what I think was so unique about being in my position, because I could walk into the office and you could have a media there on something that's happened, and you want your response. So I never knew what each day was going to be. So dark times were very few, and maybe it's just me because I don't dwell on the dark side. Try to get over, I always try to look at the positive side.
looking back on the election, sometimes I wonder if that might not have been a very dark time for you.
The election itself was very tough. I was very busy because I had to do my mayor duties, and that's expected. That wasn't something that I didn't know was going to happen. There was a fair amount of negativity around the election. I was quite concerned about the for change, identifying 4 councillors that were colleagues of mine for the 3-year term. They had worked really hard, they'd done their due diligence, they all ran independently, and so there was no real reasons given except quite broad statements about those particular individuals, and so I was very worried about sort of the outcome of I guess, the promotion of these 4, that they shouldn't be considered as future elected officials. And at the end, of course, obviously, very disappointing with a very close vote at the very end, and we had to wait till the final kind of count.
That was close, wasn't it?
And and my family, I found, and I ran an election with just family and friends, not big dollars. Didn't ask people for big money. My husband was my biggest supporter. So, it really impacted. I realized how much my family believed in me and my friends believed in me. And then so it was hard. That was probably, but I don't, you go on with life. I mean, disappointment,
yes.
Absolutely. But you go on, and since then, people, I'm amazed everywhere. Even yesterday, I was at an event, so this is 4 months after. 5 months, and I'm still having people going that they're very sorry I'm not there, and they hope I'm going to do something.
You feel really supported, don't you?
Oh, it's amazing. Everywhere I go, it's from hugs on the street to just comments.
What would you say has been your greatest achievement as mayor?
Well, there's achievement can be value. I guess it can be measured in a number of ways, and I look at certainly as mayor. Developing policy that I think makes a difference. And in my case, it was the promotion of sustainability. I ran on sustainability. I ran on that balance between, protecting the environment, which I value so much, making sure that the economy was as best we could as a city. We had the most infrastructure dollars ever contributed in our community. Social issues, we had 3 housing projects that I was so proud of. And in culture, so I ran on that. Projects, the one that comes to mind immediately is the Jim Stewart Park and the ice rink.
If you were to pinpoint one of the things that you listed, the one that's really dear to your heart and that you believe would be like a centerpiece, like a gem for you, which one would that be?
Oh, that to me is very hard. For sustainability, I think protection of the environment.
That would be a big one.
Big one. And I was in air quality. In fact, I got recognized by the BC Lung Association this past year in being a leader in air quality initiatives, which I had done for about 10 years. So, but there's the physical projects, there's the policy ones, and then there's the passion that you bring to the position.
And if there were anything that you would like to, if you could go back and do one thing over, what do you imagine that might be?
Oh.
You're in your time machine, you go back.
Great.
I'm going to do it over.
Certainly, I wish we'd had the downtown plan started earlier. I mean, we went through 4 years of discussion on this comprehensive development zone that ended up with it from one council, my first term, to the second council. A year and a half into that term before a decision was made. Took way too long. I wish we'd had a decision as council earlier. So if I could go back in time, I would have liked that off the books if it was going to be defeated, which it ended up being earlier, because then it took us time to get going on developing the downtown plan, which has now resulted in the Bernard Avenue Revite, which is happening this year. So that's the previous council's work, and I'm very proud of that. But I'm not going to be there I'm going to be as a citizen enjoying it, but it certainly was a lot of hard work. But so that I think took far too long for decision making, and I would have gone back and No.
and sped it up maybe.
Somehow, I mean, we were trying very hard. We were, you know, because of the impact on the transportation system, we were, you know, responsible for getting input from the provincial government, and that really was a holdup.